if we are aiming for simplicity, it's not just for the sake of simplicity. It's more about total cost of ownership. If we have to invest money into making some flow simplistic, it may turn out that it doesn't make sense from a practical point of view. So this CTO is always North Star for us.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX-focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialists James Gurd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy and leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. This episode is sponsored by WellPay. Thanks for tuning in again to Inside Commerce. Got an interesting conversation today. So we're looking at the mechanics of replatforming and deconstructing a hybrid B2B, B2C migration, and looking at this from a case study point of view of what drives a project, how do you approach it, how do you architect it, how do you handle some of the challenges in a B2B, B2C setup, making decisions about going native versus third party. And the reason why we wanted to do this today is we got, so Michael, who I'll introduce in a minute, and some of you will know anyway, who works Commerce UI and has got a stack of experience in running replatform projects across different types of business. But we wanted to come at it from an angle that replatforming, every project is different, every technology decision is different, the complexity varies. The commonality, though, is that every project has challenges. Every project has a change management process to get people over the line, and there are compromises that have to be made in order to get an optimal output and to be able to deliver on time. So I find these case studies really interesting to explore. So Michael, rather than me telling everyone about who you are and what you do you want to give people a flavor for Commerce UI and yourself and what sort of work you do?
Yeah, sure. So hi James, hi everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Michael Klim. I'm co-founder and CTO at Commerce UI. Basically leading around 30 people, teams of highly skilled engineers, designers, and builders. We are a boutique studio doing storefronts. I guess we excel at bringing aesthetics and merging it together with technology. So that's about us.
Yeah, and what I love as well is that you've got a lot of experience across building storefronts and themes versus building headless. And this is really important actually, because part of the conversation today will be about how you make that decision. And I think the market's matured in its understanding of a headless solution, not a goal. But I think there's still sometimes people who aren't used to these projects get a bit confused about how would you make a decision. So really looking forward to understanding the decision factors in the technology stack. Let's get back context first. So this is with Lupine, so well-established brands, and we're going to talk through the design bit as well. But what I wanted to start with is the brief. So from what I've understood, the brief that you were given was to rebuild everything, unify everything, and rebrand everything, which is a big and broad brief. How did you then approach discovery and the delivery side? How would you take that and turn that into a technical discovery that covers those three elements?
Yeah. So essentially there were two completely separate teams working on a discovery. So on one hand, as you mentioned, or maybe let me start from the beginning. So Benedict Guibon, who is Lupine CEO, came to us with this, bold vision that, okay, we have a very, very good brand with, 35 years of experience building lighting, excellent engineering, excellent product, but the digital experience or digital side hadn't kept up basically with the hardware. So he had this bold vision that encompasses rebranding, which was done by another team, whole digital UI UX rebuild, B2B unification at the same time, improving operations, and of course the storefront that manages it all, both D2C and B2C side. So essentially our discovery process was done by two teams. So on one hand, we had to understand the rebranding and the vision behind the rebranding. And it was bold. Like Benedict did it didn't want to be for Lupine to be just another brand selling, hardware. He wanted to put a story behind it, and there was this the slogan "Shine On." It was very right from the beginning. It was very bold, so we had to think about it in terms of UI, UX, in terms of the storefront, how to actually convey that message, that bold vision to the e-commerce. At the same time, there are many structural limitations to how e-commerce should look. So on one, we discovered very early that they have their assets, their graphics, their videos, photos, they are so great. Like from a visual standpoint, they were so nice. Like those dramatic, very well lighted photo shoots, videos, and so on. So we knew right from the beginning that we want to use that and gave them more room to breathe and more room to show. And yeah, we knew straight from the beginning that we will have something to work with. So on one hand, those assets I mentioned, and another, we had the talks around how to actually show a physical product that produces light in this kind of a 2D space, like showing like a photo of a light itself, or or a bike lamp itself. That's just part of the story. I would say the not the big part of the story. So showing how those devices actually produces light, what are the characteristics of light? That's completely another one. So so you had to understand and find the right balance between showing something that is appealing to somebody that is new to it, and at the same time producing something that is also appealing to more of a professional type of the users who looks for actual characteristics of light, actual technical specification, and so on. So we have to combine that. On a solution/development side of things, the discovery revolves mainly around the B2B complexities. There are 15 professional groups there with custom onboarding processes and so on. So we have to map that out and actually try to translate that to Shopify capabilities and know what fits and what doesn't. At the same time, there was this third challenge. So they wanted to have something simpler, and they wanted to simplify their operations. So that was another part of the discovery. So, okay, how we take your current flows and map them to the new solution. So do we need something beside the Shopify? Is Shopify able to handle it completely? Is your current flows work in a way they work because it's your actual flow, or it's just you hit some limitations and you designed around those limitations? So yeah, it was actually like a three part discovery process.
Ready to grow your business online? With WorldPay e-commerce, you can deliver fast, secure payments your customers love, backed by global reach and real people-powered support. Scale with confidence and enhance your customers' experience with WorldPay e-commerce.
And I find it really interesting, actually, because typically with lights, the creative direction is bright, it's bold to bring in that feeling of you're in a light environment. But the Lupine site is very distinctive. As you say, like visual identity is very dark, cinematic. Some of it is almost moody. There's a lot of kind of those nighttime shots, like dusk time shots around people around roads, people on cycling on the bikes. Like how do you, and there's like the transitions as well across products where it goes from a standard product shot to like a darkened out one with the light coming out of it, and it shows the field of the light, how far the light travels. So it gives you like a relative understanding of the depth of light. How did you arrive at a direction And how did you balance that with the commerce goals? Because at the end of the day, the site's there to sell, and maybe you could highlight a few of the key unique features that you and Lupine are proud of.
Yeah. So the first one would be the one that actually shows the light. So there is a comparison module that you can actually pick a couple of different lights or lamps, and then you can actually see side by side what's the actual photo of the light itself. So how it beams the light. Is it wide or is it narrow? Is it far or not? So those kind of details matter to the whole professional or semi-professional users. So I like to think about it in a way, like if you are like 3,000, 4,000 meters above the sea level and it's snowing, you will care about how your lamp is working basically, and what type of light it will cast. So the Benedict Baum is alpinist himself, quite well known actually. So he is this kind of first-hand experience into that. So that's one feature. Another one is that every light, every product card with a light has this kind of a graph that besides having the photo of how the light works, actually, we have this graph which helps you to scan very easily the characteristics of the light itself. So yeah, that was like the one of the main changes and main driving force behind the design. So to show the light itself, not just a nice casing around the lamp and so on, but the light itself. So, and I guess from that point of view, the dark background, the dark theme around the site is perfect, because yeah, it's just light shines through darkness basically, and it's a perfect background for showing light.
The other thing that I want to look at is from an architectural point of view. You and your agency are well known for headless and hydrogen implementations. You've done quite a few high profile runs. I think like Carhartt's one of them, isn't it? If I remember
yes,
correct.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've gone with a store theme, and we'll look at more detail on that in a bit. But did you consider headless this project? If not, why not? And why did you end up going to liquid? What would be great is to hear what was the technical decision making process and the criteria that made you go for a theme.
Mm-hmm. We did consider headless. We always consider headless the same way we always consider liquid for a project. Like I would say, like liquid or headless, those just another tools in the toolbox basically that we have. So for me, always that discussion between headless and liquid wasn't that simple. I would say, like there are many dimensions to it. Your team composition, your future plans, performance, UI, UX, AI readiness nowadays. But the B2B was the one thing that was obvious, that gave the liquid obviously some advantage there. So it's not that you cannot do B2B operations on headless. You most certainly can, but then you have to build a lot of things around it, especially in CMS, and how you handle content, how you handle switching the context of the user. And it is possible, and it can even take this further than liquid. But with liquid, out of the box, like the way they handled mixing B2B content or B2B context with international context, for example, and having the option to manipulate that, they've done such a great job there. So that was one of the main decision factors for going liquid. Another one was like the design vision was bold enough, but we knew, and I guess this is like a common misconception around the liquid that you cannot do something bespoke, something custom in terms of UI UX on liquid. It's not true. You can. And I guess Lupine is a good example of that. So that wasn't the case. Performance also, because you can do very performance side on the liquid. So yeah, B2B moved us towards the liquid. There was a question mark there because we knew that we wanted more from the B2B flows. So there's this professional groups that needs onboarding verification. So then we thought, okay, we need something around Shopify that helps us do that, because we need some custom data mapping, custom endpoints, and so on. So we did use a bit of a headless in this project, but it says basically we use Hydrogen as an API gateway for that. But it works with Shopify Flow. It works with the liquid base. So I guess we have best of both worlds there.
Interesting. And that leads me on to like the architectural decision, because having worked on loads of projects as well across different verticals, whether it's single storefront or it's a B2C and a B2B, or it's also international and you've got different locales, there's always a decision process around domain management, single storefronts, multiple storefronts, markets, not markets. Can you talk us through how you approach this? I think they had 2 separate sites, duplicated catalog, lots of B2B customer groups. How did you get, what solution did you get to, and how? Because one of the key things businesses want is simplicity of management. They don't want to have multiple logins, everything's separate, having to duplicate tasks across different storefronts, because it comes frustrating. So yeah, I'd love to hear what solution you came up with and why.
Yeah. So for us, it's always boils down to this total cost of ownership, but we count it very, very free. So at the end of the day, we if the site is simple, if we are aiming for simplicity, it's not just for the sake of simplicity. Sometimes it's more about the total cost of ownership. So if we have to invest a ton of money into making some flow very, very simplistic, it may turn out that it doesn't make sense from a practical point of view. So this DDO is always like a North Star for us. The simplest systems are, is when you don't have to go out of the platform to do things, and you don't have to go through free admin panels to actually manage your site. So we always look at the problems from a Shopify perspective. Like, can Shopify actually handle that? Can editors teams do that in a Shopify admin? Do we need something external? And in this case, it was actually quite challenging and requires some creative approach there. But after initial discovery, we thought, okay, that should actually be possible to power everything through Shopify and make the whole landscape much easier for Lupine. So, and it came out true basically. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. It's always fun, especially when you've got like domain challenges as well across multiple sites. I've seen that especially in international, when you've got different domain structures, different team ownerships, and there's never a one size fits all solution. But that also then leads me nicely on to the B2B bit, because I think it's completely fair to say Shopify is not a B2B leader. They haven't been historically, but they are rapidly catching up in what I call the non-enterprise complex B2B. So wholesale, smaller accounts, etc. They've added a lot of additional functionality, opening up like multiple products, catalogs, etc. But they came from a low base, in order to try and hit into the core B2B market. I'd love to hear where you think Shopify is now at, because they're gradually removing barriers to consider them for B2B commerce. Where do you think overall Shopify B2B is? And how have you found working on I think this is your first large B2B project, is it?
Yeah, if you can say so. Like they did like first one that is mainly focused in that way on B2B. So yeah, in general, I agree. Like Shopify B2B, like built-in capabilities are pretty nice, but maybe not for enterprise grade yet. But at the same time, I think the B2B, like Shopify B2B, is a bit further than general discourse says, basically. And for me, it boils down like there the pieces. Like the built-in pieces for Shopify there are not so many pieces out there. Like there are catalogs, there is this functionality with our connection with markets and so on. There are a lot of things done already, but out of the box, you cannot compare it to like purposely built B2B platform. But at the same time, Shopify excels at, I would say, being open. So you have a lot of pieces already there, like those low level pieces. You have Shopify Flow, which is like built in iPaaS platform, basically. You have Metaobjects, which allows you to build custom data in Shopify. The API is great. It's very much open. You can do a lot through the APIs and control a big surface of your Shopify configuration. You have Shopify functions, you have validations, checkout extension, etc. There's a lot of pieces that allow you to build your custom logic around Shopify. And for me, B2B is basically custom logic. So of course there are pieces that have to be there, and lots of B2B will follow that. But apart from that, it's mostly custom. And Shopify allows you to build a lot of custom solutions around its platform. So, given also the times we live in and the fact that, development is commoditizing a lot, which is fact, that's actually an advantage of Shopify, I would say. I would, like, from a technical point of view, as a CTO, I always favors more open platforms that allows you to build something, like the ceiling is higher for them, of things that you can achieve. And it just makes me feel safer that when some requirement came to us, we can actually find the way around it.
So yeah, I'd love to drill into that, because I think Flow is a phenomenal tool, and even me as a non-CTO, non-tech person has been able to create some really cool flows that avoid using third-party apps, say like automatic generation of ticketing in like Gorgeous, for example, for customer services based on specific criteria. It's great. The one area where I'm really nervous about it is when it at scale, when there are thousands of operations running through a single flow, because I have seen challenges there where it can sometimes break down. So what I'd love to hear is, how reliable do you think it is at scale? And can you talk us through a couple of examples of how you're using Flow as the backbone for B2B? Yeah,
so at scale, you start to see some cracks. Some queries are failing. The queuing system is not perfect. Error handling or retrying of the errors is not there. So if we're talking at scale, and if we're talking like about multiple orders per minute, for example, or per second, that is somewhere that you can actually start seeing some issues. You can optimize around those to some extent, but that would be a one hard limitation for me in Flow nowadays. When it comes to triggers, so what triggers the Shopify Flow, you can basically do everything you want, and then you can transform the data any way you want, and you can actually invoke some actions. So in a way, it's a full-blown iOS platform. The scale is the limitation there. But at the same time, if we're talking about automating operations, the scale is not always the issue. So basically, like for example, in Lupine, we use Shopify Flow heavily to power up the onboarding process. So every B2B customer have to be onboarded in some way. So sending up some documents, going through the verification process, and then actually being invited to the platform. And for those kind of flows, Flow is basically perfect. And at this point in Lupine, it powers all the support team with automating operation. On top of that, when the client is onboarded, after some time there is this kind of a verification process that after a year, somebody had to renew or show another documents to actually maintain its status. That is always also something that Flow is very good at. So I would be very careful when it comes to scale, to processing thousands of queries or hundreds of queries per minute. But when it comes to powering up even complex flows, I guess Shopify Flow is farther than a lot of people think.
I guess what's interesting is how they've been extending it. And I think this is the true test of any middleware, whether it's a middleware within a platform or it's a separate middleware that connects to other platforms, is extensibility and connectability to third parties.
Yes.
And I think that's a bit I'm definitely interested in, is how Shopify is able to then connect out to third parties within its ecosystem, not just to run functions within the Shopify environment and admin. So interesting that you have used that quite extensively on a B2B. I've not seen it used because I don't do that. I haven't done B2B on Shopify. I've done on other platforms. So I'm interested in seeing the decision making.
I guess, there was like this point in time that Shopify Flow started to be the serious tool when it started to be able to connect with external endpoints, because that basically means you can do anything and you can connect to anything, and you can spin up the Hydrogen API endpoints and you can do ton of stuff there. Like I mentioned, the error handling, the trying process is a bit of a challenge, but otherwise, I would say I see bigger limitation in third parties vendor APIs or lack of them than in Shopify. Because I would always say that Shopify API is an excellent one.
I'm intrigued. So for agencies listening on this, who are evaluating, maybe they're used to like the B2C, Shopify's generating more interest from people who have got hybrid models as well, about the ability to consolidate on single tech. Just as Centra's done in the fashion space with its wholesale and its B2C offering, and that's really popular with its client base. So what I'd love to hear about this is that, so agencies evaluating how to do B2B, and looking at Flow versus custom app and middleware, or even a specialist like Sparkler has got a really strong reputation in the Shopify world as being a kind of a more robust B2B. Like what's the reason to not look for an external one where you might get additional functionality? How do you see this progressing over time? Like, from what you're seeing and hearing internally, is this an area where you actually think Shopify is really focused on building out a mature B2B product over time, like it has with B2C?
Yes, definitely. Shopify is very focused on that. We can see this in amount of updates to things like Flow, to things like Metaobjects, API functions, and the B2B itself. It progresses so quickly over the last 2 years, basically. So yes, that's definitely there. I guess if you're running, like tons of like you thinking about Shopify as a proper CPQ system with thousands of rules and so on, that's not yet there. but otherwise, I would always consider it. And also because this opening in the API basically.
And coming on to like the last question of B2B before we go into some more of the storefront stuff is around underestimated complexities in a B2B and B2C unified setup. Because I think sometimes it's a simple thing. All right, well, it's a just different storefront or market, and it's a different price and catalog. But actually, B2B can be unique price catalogs per customer, or it can be customer groups with specific pricing within the case. You can have different customers. Then you've got account structures. It's not just a single customer with a customer account. It can be a business that can have subdivisions. It can even be a 3-level hierarchy of a parent, a child, and like grandchild setup, and they can have different invoicing structures and different commercial terms. You suddenly, depending on the complexity of the accounts, you can have a lot of challenges architecting it. From what you've seen, what's the most underestimated complexity in a combined B2B, B2C setup, and what do you need to think about in order to get the right approach?
I guess if we're talking about most underestimated complexity, because that's a interesting perspective on that. Because I guess everyone knows that B2B is complex, or everyone expects that B2B is complex, and for right reasons, basically. So, I guess the most underestimated thing is on the UI UX side of things. On the storefront, like how actually you present the product to very, very different types of users. So on one hand, a D2C user, I would say, would be this kind of a low intent user. So this user want to be led basically and exploring the site and want to know more about the product history, what it does, and may be completely new to the entire field. On the other hand, a B2B user is like this high intent user that knows exactly what she wants or he wants, and basically want to buy it as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, and know more about maybe details and how to push it further. So, and then the storefront has to accommodate both of those groups. So if we're talking about this, highly polished D2C experience, it's getting even harder, because now you have to put the B2B experience, which is completely different, like the widgets for even the discovery of the products, or widgets for buying the products should be completely different. And you have to actually squeeze that into this D2C UI UX, which can be an advantage, because the B2B experience is suddenly not much worse than a D2C one. But you have to think about this as a two completely different paths to check out to buying a product. And you have to accommodate for that right from the beginning, in order to actually design and then build something beautiful and working at the same time.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Now let's talk to some of the, I guess, the more theme-based solutions that you built to support the product data model needs of Lupine. Now, you built, from what I'm saying, you built a product configurator, and you've talked about, I think you posted about this on LinkedIn recently. It's a really interesting article. You built a product configurator entirely in Shopify using like the Metaobjects metadata model, rather than going down the route of a third party or some custom tech to do that. I'd love to, can you talk people through listening, like what the solution is and why the Metaobject meta field route was the right one? Because from my point of view, when I look at it, as the more that you can use native and the more you're on the existing infrastructure, the better. You've got one less point of failure, one less app to maintain and manage, one less app that could suddenly decrement functionality or decide that they're no longer supporting it, one less app fee to pay. And I'm seeing more and more brands actually buying into this, that when they move into an ecosystem like a Shopify, a Ecommerce Center, that actually building on that platform using the extensibility is good. So yeah, can you talk us through that? And what was it? What made this the right option?
Yeah. So let me maybe start with a bit of a story. So before, like, this was a major operational hurdle, because basically Lupine team had to duplicate all of the products whenever they wanted to have a different price of it on it. So basically one product could be actually 10 products because it was sold in 10 different contexts or even more. And you can imagine actually how complex it may be. It was to actually manage this product catalog, this enormous product catalog. Suddenly you have 10 times more products that you actually need. And there are no visible connections between them. So, on one hand, and Lupine products are, I would say, inherently modular. So the lights are combined with different batteries, straps, or different technologies. So you can see right from the beginning that those parts are actually separate products. And if you architect them like that, you don't have to actually build a ton of products for every permutation possible. On top of that, we have B2B on Shopify, which allows us to have different catalogs for different products. So that solved the pricing complexity. And yeah, parts are designing the product around parts and not the outcome product on itself. So another one. But if you design it that way, so suddenly you have to think about, okay, how do I connect them? How I make this meaningful connection, for the users and for the editors, also. And Metaobjects are great for that, because you can actually build this custom editor experience around it and build those custom connections between the products. And they got very, very complex because, one product, one configurable product can consist from 10 to 5 to 10 different parts. And then there's an option to actually buy a preset, which is a ready-made configuration prepared by the Lupine team. And then there are options that allow you to personalize the products, so like maybe add some engraving, for example. And it changes dynamically. And that leads us to the first issue with third-party apps. Like third-party apps can be very powerful, but your business model will change, and it will change dynamically. And something that is right now can be not right in a year or so. Having this kind of custom structure, the Metaobjects, Shopify native, having like playing around those primitives allow you to actually configure it in the way that you need and change that configuration. You are not dependent on somebody else's roadmap. So that's the first thing. Another dimension I would say that is very important. Like, we live in this AI or LLM era, and once again, Shopify has a very, very great API, and that means that LLMs can actually interact with it. Third-party apps, for a lot of time, doesn't have great APIs, and they're more closed because that's basically their business model to actually provide you this boxed functionality that is unique to them. So, you actually benefit from the fact that if you structure this around the meta objects, you can easily surface that structure, that connection to the labs. So that's another thing. Third thing is basically the performance and the UI UX of the whole solution. Like, third-party solutions have to be generalized. Like, they always have to serve a bigger group of people, and by that they bring a lot of load to the code, and they will always you cannot make them look and feel very seamless with the rest of the layout. With the custom solution, you can actually do that pretty easily. The same goes for performance. You can actually optimize it pretty heavily because basically you own the front end experience also.
Yeah, well, having worked with a lot of apps in different environments, you're right, they're generalist, and you always find a functional limitation. I've seen this in like discount apps where a specific type of discount or exclusion can't be done, and therefore they have to do a bit of custom development, which is a charge anyway in order to get it. So you do end up, you reach the point where you're right, as a business need evolve, you then either have to pivot to a different app provider, which then means reset up, and then you potentially come to that limit again, or you're paying custom development anyway, but you don't have the control over how it's working. So yeah, interesting to hear that thought process.
Yeah, I would say it's like, I guess there is a place for those third-party configurators if it's not your main or primary product line, and you have maybe one product that is configurable, or you try to experiment with introducing such products. Like third parties are great, like they allow you to move quickly, to experiment quickly. But if your business is centered around configurable product, make it yours.
Yeah, I think that's a really good delineation, actually, because often when I'm working with clients and they want to test a configurator, that is the MVP approach, is do a basic one. If you don't have really complex configurable parts and different logic gates based on if you select A, then it refines the selection for the next input point. It's a really good way to test the waters and see whether it has a commercial impact. You're right. Final question I've got, actually two final questions, is coming back to pricing. And one of the big limitations native Shopify and B2C is that it doesn't have price books. You have a single price, you have a compare app price for discounting. Your B2B, you have price books. You can have multiple price books. So you're in a world now with Lupine where you've got a B2C price for a product, you've got dealer prices, potential different pricing across the B2B customer groups. How do you handle that architecture and data-wise in the commerce engine? And what issues did you find and how did you get around them?
Yeah, that's a part that actually gets a bit complex. It is possible to run it on Shopify, but it's a mix of many different tools, and the mix has to be basically strategized around and documented, and it, it's a combination of many tools. So on one hand, you have this Shopify catalogs, which allows for each customer group to have its own appropriate pricing. Then it's combined with basically setting up automatic discounts or individual discounts on a different level. So for resellers and so on. Also, those catalogs can, within the company itself, there could be some special rules for one individual or one location. So you have to accommodate for that. It's another specified Shopify catalog, or a discount itself, or a automatic discount, or a manual discount itself. So you have to actually strategize and architect around all of those tools that you have available, and build the system around it. And it's not perfect, honestly. So it is possible to architect around it, but it's not visible straight away. So you have to build the documentation around it. It's a bit of a, this kind of magical knowledge that you and hopefully your client have, and you've done the proper handoff for the client how to actually establish this. So it's definitely not straightforward.
And from having gone through this process and having to got into this detail about the architecture in a hybrid model, I guess what are the key learnings that you've taken away from the project, where if you're in another project that's got the similar challenges, will help you to make smarter decisions or quicker decisions?
The tech is one thing, when it comes, like, especially for this complex project, it does plays a major role, and you have to carefully plan around it and prepare your test stack to be ready for all of this complexity. But I guess the part that is always underestimated is the change management on the client side. So with this whole migration with the B2B, you're not changing just the test stack, you're not changing the vendors list. You're actually changing how the client team is operating, and they have to get accustomed to all of the new flows, of the new ways of doing things. And they will be doing that during the project, development, during the project life cycle. And with that, with gathering this new knowledge and getting accustomed to the new project, their expectation will also change at some point, because maybe they didn't thought that something was possible, or should be done in a way. So you have to be prepared for a bit of, you have to be prepared for a bit of a surprise there, and actually managing early this change management, preparing the client for that, how the new system will operate, how your flows will change, and map those flows very early on the project is a good thing to prepare.
Yeah, agreed. I think all projects, you come to the point where it's actually some of the assumptions you have at the start have to be changed during a project, and therefore it has an impact on process flows. And I'm just going through it on a client at the moment around customer service and having a customer service training guide for their team so they know what they're doing and how. And yeah, it's really, really important to bring people on the journey. So, but Michael, always enjoy talking to you, always enjoy reading your updates on LinkedIn about the projects you deliver. Anyone else wants to follow Michael, I recommend it on LinkedIn. Always post really interesting insights into like new projects, technology solutions, and decision making behind it. His contact details on the landing page. If you've got a particular challenge or this is resonating and you want to discuss any particular projects with him, then please do reach out. But Michael, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, James. Pleasure to be here. Take care.
And thanks as always to everyone for listening. Keep your ears peeled for the next episode. Take care, everyone. You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gurd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.